My name is Megan Foster. I'm 29 years old. At 2:16 on the afternoon of March 18th, I stood in the upstairs hallway of my parents' house with a hospital discharge bracelet still around my wrist, a stitched incision under my sweater, and a plastic pharmacy bag hanging from 2 fingers, while my cousin slept in my bed. My bed, under my grandmother's quilt, beside my window, with my books stacked in cardboard boxes outside the door, like donations nobody had bothered to label. For 10 seconds, I did not understand what I was seeing. Pain medicine made the walls feel slightly too bright. The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner, and the chicken casserole my mother only made when she wanted credit for caring. My overnight bag slipped against my hip. Somewhere downstairs, my father's recliner clicked back into place. Then my cousin Harper rolled over, opened one eye, and smiled. "Oh," she said, like I was the surprise. "You're home." I looked at my room again. Her suitcase stood open beside my dresser. My framed nursing school certificate was leaning against the wall. My clothes had been shoved into black trash bags near the closet. The small white jewelry dish my grandmother gave me was upside down on the carpet, and one pearl earring lay beside it. I said, "Why are you in my room?" Harper stretched slowly, making sure the quilt stayed around her shoulders. Aunt Linda said it made more sense. "You're barely here anyway." I heard my mother start up the stairs. "Megan," she called too brightly. "Don't get upset. The doctor said stress is bad for healing." What they didn't know was that 2 years earlier, my grandmother had signed that house over in a deed my parents had never bothered to read. Not promised, not suggested. Signed. Recorded. Filed with the county. My name was on it. This is that story. Before I tell you how my parents learned that giving away my room also meant explaining themselves in front of a lawyer, a bank officer, and the cousin they had chosen over me, tell me where you are watching or listening from, and what time it is there. I always wonder who hears stories like this while lying awake, remembering the moment family made them feel disposable. And if you connect with stories about women who were betrayed, underestimated, and quietly took their power back, like and subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. Some women do not slam doors. Some women bring documents. I grew up in Briar Glen, Pennsylvania, in a white 2-story house on Hawthorne Street, with blue shutters, a cracked brick walkway, and a maple tree that dropped helicopters across the front lawn every spring. Everyone in town called it the Foster House. That was the first lie. It had been my grandmother's house first. Evelyn Foster bought it in 1984, after my grandfather died from a heart attack at 57. She worked 22 years as a school secretary, saved everything in envelopes, and paid that house off one careful month at a time. She planted the hydrangeas herself. She painted the kitchen cabinets pale yellow because she said every woman deserved one room that looked like mourning. My father, Richard Foster, was her only child. He was 58 when this happened, a parts manager at a car dealership who believed being loud was the same thing as being right. My mother, Linda, was 56 and worked part-time at a dental office, though she spoke about her schedule like she was running an emergency room. They had 2 children. My older brother, Tyler, who was 33 and lived in Charlotte with a wife, 2 kids, and a talent for being praised for basic phone calls. And me. I was the daughter who stayed. I do not say that with bitterness. For a long time I said it with pride. I was the one who drove Grandma Evelyn to her appointments after her arthritis got bad. I was the one who filled her pill organizer every Sunday night. I was the one who learned which blanket she liked for naps, which mug made tea taste too metallic, and which church ladies called only to collect gossip. I was the one who sat beside her during the long winter evenings when pain made her quieter than usual. My parents lived in the house too, though they had not paid the mortgage, because there was no mortgage left to pay. They moved in after my father needed a reset following a failed business partnership when I was 17. Grandma said family should have a place to land. My mother said it was temporary. Temporary lasted 12 years. The hierarchy in our family was never spoken, but it was as fixed as the old staircase railing. Tyler was the golden child because he left, and therefore seemed successful. My father described him as, quote, building a life. When Tyler missed birthdays, he was busy. When Tyler forgot Mother's Day, he had pressure. When Tyler called twice a year and spent most of the conversation talking about himself, my mother put him on speakerphone and mouthed, "Isn't he sweet?" I was available, which made me ordinary. If Grandma needed groceries, I went. If Dad needed his prescription picked up, I went. If Mom forgot to order flowers for a funeral, I fixed it. If Tyler came home for Christmas, I washed the sheets in the guest room and pretended not to notice that he never stripped the bed before leaving. My cousin Harper came from my mother's side of the family. She was 31, pretty in a restless way, with glossy dark hair, acrylic nails, and a voice that turned helpless whenever men entered the room. Her mother, my Aunt Rochelle, had spent years calling my mother with disasters. Harper lost a job. Harper had a bad breakup. Harper needed a fresh start. Harper was not good with money because she was too trusting. By the time Harper was 28, she had burned through 3 apartments, 2 credit cards, 1 used car loan, and every ounce of patience most reasonable people owned. My parents treated her like a wounded bird. They treated me like the branch. She's had a hard time, my mother would say whenever Harper arrived with another overnight bag and no plan. So have I said once. My mother looked at me as if I had cursed in church. Megan, you're strong, don't compare. That was one of the earliest lessons I learned in that house. If you were reliable, your pain counted less. My symbolic object through all of this was a brass house key on a faded green ribbon. Grandma Evelyn gave it to me when I was 12. The first summer she let me walk home from the library by myself. The key was heavier than the newer ones, worn smooth at the edges, and the green ribbon came from an old Christmas package she had saved, because she saved everything that might still be useful. This is not just for the door, she told me. It means you always have a place here. I kept that key through middle school, high school, college, and nursing training. When I moved back into the foster house after Grandma's health declined, I tied the ribbon to a new metal ring, but I kept the original key. It hung near my bedroom door on a small hook shaped like a bird. My bedroom was at the end of the upstairs hall, facing the maple tree. It had sloped ceilings, white curtains, a narrow closet, and a scratch on the windowsill from where I had once dragged a desk too close to the wall. It was not fancy. But it was mine in a way few things in that house were. Grandma understood that. My parents did not. The first time they tried to give part of my space away, I was 24 and working nights as a certified nursing assistant while finishing my RN prerequisites. Harper had broken up with a man named Vince and needed somewhere to stay, just until Monday. Monday became 3 weeks. My mother put Harper on an air mattress in my room without asking because girls can share. I came home at 7:40 in the morning after a 12-hour shift and found Harper sleeping across my floor with a white noise machine blasting ocean sounds. My uniform smelled like disinfectant and exhaustion. I said, "Mom, I need to sleep." My mother whispered from the doorway, "Harper had a terrible night." So did I. I was at a hospital. She's emotionally fragile right now. I looked at Harper, who had eaten crackers in my bed and left crumbs on my blanket. I slept in Grandma's recliner that day. The second time was the summer I turned 26. Tyler visited for 4 days with his family, and my parents decided he and his wife deserved my room because it had the best air conditioner. They moved me to the basement sofa while I was at work. When I objected, my father said, "Don't be selfish. Tyler has kids." I said, "I work double shifts." He said, "And you live here rent-free." Grandma, sitting in her chair by the window, looked up from her crossword. "No, she does not." My father turned. "Mom." Grandma put down her pencil. "Megan pays the electric bill and buys half the groceries. She also takes me to every appointment you forget." The room went still. My father said nothing else, but later that night, he slammed the basement door hard enough to shake dust from the frame. The third time came after Grandma's fall. It was October, rain tapping against the kitchen windows, and Grandma had slipped near the back steps while my mother was supposedly watching her. I was at the clinic. By the time I got home, Grandma was in the emergency room with a fractured hip, and my mother was telling everyone she had turned away for 1 second. Grandma recovered slowly. I slept in a chair beside her rehab bed. I learned how to transfer her without hurting her shoulder. I memorized medication schedules and wound care instructions. My parents visited when convenient and complained about parking. One night at 11:10, Grandma opened her eyes and said, "Megan, bring me the blue folder from my dresser when we go home." "What blue folder?" "The one under the scarves." Her hand was cold in mine. "Okay," I said. A week later, after she came home, I brought it to her. She asked me to sit at the kitchen table. The old brass key lay between us because I had just come in from the pharmacy. Inside the folder were property records, insurance papers, and a deed prepared by a lawyer named Mr. Alden Price. Grandma tapped the top page. "I changed some things." I stared at the legal language. "I don't understand." "You will," she said. "Your father thinks inheritance is a reward for being born. I think stewardship is a reward for showing up." I looked at her. The house had been transferred into my name through a life estate deed. Grandma retained the right to live there for the rest of her life. After her death, I would hold full ownership. My parents were not owners. They had permission to live there as long as I allowed it after Grandma passed. "Grandma, I can't take your house." She smiled, tired but certain. "You're not taking it. I'm placing it with the person who knows where the shutoff valve is." I almost laughed. Then I cried quietly, because she had said the most practical thing in the world and somehow made it sacred. "Do Mom and Dad know?" "They know I saw a lawyer." "That's not the same." "No," she said, "it is not." "Grandma." Her eyes sharpened. "Megan, listen carefully. People who benefit from your silence will call truth cruelty. Keep the papers. Record what matters. And never let anyone make you feel like a guest in a house you kept alive." She died 6 months later, on a Thursday morning in April while the hydrangeas were just starting to green at the edges. The funeral was small. Tyler cried loudly and left early because his youngest had soccer. My father accepted condolences like a man receiving awards. My mother kept saying we'll never be the same, while handing people sandwiches I had ordered. I did not mention the deed. I was grieving. I was tired. And a part of me still hoped my parents would choose decency without being forced. For almost 2 years after Grandma died, life continued in that uneasy way families maintain denial. I paid the property taxes from an account Grandma had helped me set up. My father gave me cash sometimes and called it helping with expenses, though it never matched the bills. My mother continued saying "our house" whenever neighbors came by. I let it go because correcting her every time felt like turning grief into a ledger. Then my appendix ruptured. It happened on March 10th, at 4:20 in the morning. I woke with a pain so sharp I thought something inside me had torn. I was sweating through my t-shirt, curled on my bathroom floor, unable to stand. I called for my mother first, then my father. No one came. Their bedroom door was shut. My father slept with a fan on high. My mother took half a sleeping pill most nights and became impossible to wake. I called 911 myself. The paramedics arrived at 4:41. One of them, a woman named Dana, crouched beside me and said, "You did the right thing." I remember thinking how strange it was to hear that from a stranger while my own parents slept 30 feet away. At the hospital, everything moved quickly. Tests, IV. A surgeon with kind eyes. Words like perforation and infection and emergency laparoscopic appendectomy. My mother arrived at 9:35 wearing full makeup and carrying a travel mug. "Megan," she said, putting one hand to her chest. "Why didn't you wake us?" I looked at her. I tried. My father came at noon and complained about the parking fee. I spent 5 days in the hospital because the infection had spread enough to make my doctors cautious. During that time, my parents visited twice. Harper visited once with a balloon that said "get well soon," then spent 20 minutes talking about how hospitals made her anxious. On March 15th, my mother stood beside my bed, scrolling on her phone. "Harper may stay with us for a little while." I was too tired to sit up. What happened now? She and her roommate had a disagreement. What kind of disagreement? My mother avoided my eyes. "Megan, not everything has to be interrogated." I closed my eyes. Where will she stay? We'll figure it out. The old version of me would have asked another question. The recovering version of me did not have the strength. I was discharged on March 18th with antibiotics, pain medication, lifting restrictions, and instructions not to climb stairs more than necessary. My father picked me up because my mother had a dental office emergency, which turned out to mean their receptionist was out and she wanted to seem indispensable. The ride home was quiet. I sat with a pillow pressed against my abdomen, watching bare trees pass under a gray sky. My father drove too fast over potholes. Careful, I said once. He sighed. I'm doing my best, Megan. That sentence had excused more harm in our family than any apology ever repaired. When we pulled into the driveway, I noticed Harper's car parked near the garage. It was a white Kia with a dented bumper and a glittery steering wheel cover. 2 garbage bags sat on the porch. My garbage bags. I recognized the blue sweater sleeve caught in the knot. Dad, I said slowly, why are my clothes outside? He turned off the engine. Your mother wanted to organize before you came home. I looked at him. Organize what? He got out without answering. Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner. The kitchen counters were spotless in the performative way my mother cleaned before making an announcement. A casserole sat cooling on the stove. The brass key with the green ribbon was not on its hook near the stairs. My body knew before my mind did. I climbed the stairs slowly, one hand against the wall, pain pulling at my side with each step. At the top, I saw the boxes. Books, shoes, photo albums, my scrubs, my framed certificate, my grandmother's recipe tin, trash bags tied tight, as if my life had become something to store until someone decided whether to keep it. Then I saw Harper in my bed. That was the breaking point. My mother reached the hallway behind me, breathless from climbing too fast. Now, Megan, don't make that face. I did not turn around. Harper sat up and pushed her hair over one shoulder. Aunt Linda said this room gets the best light. I'm trying to get back on my feet. I said, get out of my bed. My mother gasped. Do not speak to your cousin like that. Harper's mouth curved. It's fine, Aunt Linda. She's probably emotional from the anesthesia. I looked at her suitcase, her makeup on my dresser, her phone charger plugged into the outlet beside my nightstand. My grandmother's quilt under her hands. My father appeared at the top of the stairs. Megan, we're not doing drama today. The hallway narrowed around me. I could feel the incision pulse. I could smell casserole. I could hear Harper's nails tapping against my headboard. My mother said, You're 29 years old. You need to start thinking about independence. I turned then, slowly. Independence? Yes, your father and I have talked. Harper needs stability. You have a job. You can afford a small place once you recover. For now, you can use the den downstairs. The den has no door. It has a sofa. My doctor said I shouldn't sleep on a sofa. My father folded his arms. You should be grateful you have somewhere to come home to. I looked at him for a long moment. I am home. He laughed once. Not loudly, worse, dismissively. Megan, this is our house. Short sentences came to me then, clean ones, cold ones. I did not answer. I looked at the missing key hook. I counted 5 seconds. Then I understood something I should have understood years earlier. They did not take my room because they forgot I mattered. They took it because they believed I would never make them prove I did not. I walked past them into the room, picked up my grandmother's quilt from Harper's lap, and folded it once. Harper said, "Excuse me?" I did not look at her. I took the quilt, my pharmacy bag, and one cardboard box containing my documents. Then I went downstairs to the den. My mother followed me. I hope you're not going to sulk. I sat carefully on the edge of the sofa. I need to rest. That's exactly what we're trying to help you do. I looked at the box beside me. On top sat the blue folder, my grandmother's folder. I placed my palm on it. No, I said quietly, you are not. That night, while everyone slept, I opened the folder. The den was cold because the vent barely worked. Moonlight came through the blinds in thin white lines. I sat with a pillow braced against my side and spread the documents across the coffee table. Life estate deed. Recorded with the Bryan County Recorder of Deeds. Grantor, Evelyn Marie Foster. Remainder beneficiary, Megan Claire Foster. Property address, 118 Hawthorne Street, Briar Glen, Pennsylvania. I read every page. Then I read it again. Grandma's signature appeared at the bottom in blue ink, strong and slanted, witnessed and notarized. The recording stamp was clear. 2 years old, perfectly filed. I photographed each page. Then I searched the county property database online. There it was. Owner name, Megan C. Foster. Care of address, 118 Hawthorne Street. My parents had spent 2 years saying our house inside a home they had no legal claim to own. At 3:12 in the morning, Harper came downstairs for water and saw the papers on the coffee table. "What are those?" she asked. I slid the deed back into the folder. "Records." She leaned against the doorway. "You always make everything intense." I looked up at her. "You're sleeping in my bed." She smiled. "Aunt Linda said you needed a push." "A push where?" "Out," she shrugged. "It's not personal. I just think your parents are tired of you acting like the house belongs to you because you took Grandma to appointments." I held her gaze. "It does belong to me." Her smile faded for half a second. Then she laughed. "Oh my God, you're on painkillers." I closed the folder. "Go to bed, Harper." She rolled her eyes and went upstairs. By the following Monday, I had made 3 calls. The first was to Bryan County Recorder of Deeds to request certified copies of the property record. The clerk, a man named Mr. Rollins, asked, "Do you need the full transfer history?" "Yes," I said. "Certified." "Pickup or mail?" "Pickup." The second call was to Alden Price, the lawyer who had prepared Grandma's deed. He still had an office above Briar Glen Savings Bank, with dark green carpeting and shelves full of estate binders. His receptionist scheduled me for Thursday at 10:15 in the morning. The third call was to my charge nurse, Danielle, who had been trying to get me to take medical leave seriously. "I need 1 favor," I said. "You need 10 favors," she answered. "But start with 1. If my parents call the hospital asking about my condition or trying to say I'm unstable, can anyone tell them anything?" "No," Danielle said. "Not without your authorization. I want a note in my chart that no medical information is to be released to Richard or Linda Foster." Her voice changed. "Megan, are you safe?" I looked at the den door. It still had no lock. "I'm documenting." "Good," she said. "Documenting is how safe starts." 3 days later, on the first Thursday after I came home, my mother stood in the kitchen making coffee while Harper sat at the table wearing my blue cardigan. I noticed immediately. "That's mine," I said. Harper looked down as if surprised by her own clothing. "Aunt Linda said it was in a bag." "My bag." My mother set her mug down. "Megan, you weren't using it. That is not how ownership works." My father, reading the newspaper at the end of the table, lowered it with a sigh. "You are making this house miserable." I stood near the doorway, one hand against my side. "This house?" He pointed at me. "Exactly, that attitude. You think because you helped your grandmother, you get to run everyone." Harper murmured, "I can leave if I'm causing problems." She made no move to stand. My mother touched her shoulder. "No, sweetheart, you stay. Megan needs to learn that the world does not revolve around her recovery." I looked at my mother. There were moments when love did not die all at once. It simply stopped defending itself. "I have an appointment," I said. My father shook the newspaper. "With who?" "A lawyer." The word entered the kitchen like cold air. My mother's hand froze on Harper's shoulder. "For what?" she asked. I picked up my purse from the chair. "Paperwork." My father stood. "What kind of paperwork?" I looked at the brass key hook near the stairs, still empty. "The kind people should read before moving furniture." Then I left. Mr. Price's office looked exactly like I imagined it would. Old wooden chairs, a ticking wall clock, framed certificates, and a faint smell of coffee and toner. He was in his late 60s, with careful white hair and a burgundy tie. When I gave my name, his expression softened. "Evelyn's granddaughter." "Yes." "She spoke very highly of you." I swallowed once. "Thank you." He read the deed and the property records I brought, though he clearly knew what they said. Then I told him what happened. I did not embellish. I did not cry. I described the hospital stay, the room, the trash bags, the cousin in my bed, my father saying it was their house. Mr. Price removed his glasses and placed them on the desk. "Your parents are not owners." "I know. They may have established residency depending on how long they have lived there, so removing them requires proper notice if that becomes necessary. But they cannot give your room away, they cannot lease space. They cannot exclude you. They cannot claim ownership. They are, at most, occupants by permission. I looked at the brass key in my hand. I had found it that morning in a kitchen drawer under batteries and rubber bands. Someone had taken it from my hook and tossed it there. What do I do? We begin with a letter, he said. Clear, formal, no threats, just facts. He drafted it while I sat across from him. The letter stated that I was the recorded owner of 118 Hawthorne Street, that Richard and Linda Foster had no authority to assign rooms or remove my possessions, that Harper Bell was not authorized to reside there without my written permission, and that all my belongings were to be returned to my bedroom by 6 o'clock on March 25th. It also scheduled a meeting at his office for March 26th at 11 in the morning to discuss occupancy terms going forward. I read the letter twice. Will they come? I asked. Mr. Price smiled without humor. People who believe they own things usually come to defend them. That afternoon, I paid for certified copies of the deed and the current property record. Mr. Rollins at the Recorder of Deeds office stamped them in front of me. The sound of the stamp hitting paper felt almost ceremonial. At 4:40, I mailed one copy of Mr. Price's letter by certified mail. At 4:52, I sent another by email. At 5:17, my mother called. I let it ring. At 5:19, my father called. I let it ring. At 5:23, Tyler called from Charlotte, which meant my parents had already started performing injury for an audience. I answered. What the hell is going on? He said. Hello, Tyler. Mom is crying. Dad says you're trying to steal Grandma's house. I was sitting in my car outside the post office. Rain dotted the windshield. That is not possible. What? You cannot steal property already legally in your name. He went quiet. Then he laughed. Megan, come on. I sent you the county link. I had done it 3 minutes before answering. He paused. I heard tapping. Then silence. Megan, he said, lower now. Why does the county website say you own the house? Because I own the house. Since when? Since Grandma filed the deed. Did Mom know? You should ask her. He exhaled hard. This is going to destroy them. No, I said. The truth is going to inconvenience them. There's a difference. When I got home that evening, nobody spoke to me. My belongings were still in boxes. Harper's shoes were still by my bedroom door. The den sofa still waited downstairs like a punishment. But the air had changed. My father watched me from the living room with a look I had never seen on his face before. Calculation. Not remorse. Not understanding. Calculation. At 9:30 that night, he knocked on the den frame. We need to talk. I closed the book I was not reading. About what? You went too far. I sent legal notice. You embarrassed your mother. She put my clothes in trash bags while I was in the hospital. His jaw moved. That was handled poorly. That was the closest my father came to accountability. Passive voice. I said, where is Grandma's quilt? He blinked. What? The quilt that was on my bed. Harper was using it. I want it back. You're focusing on the wrong thing. No, I said. I'm focusing on the first thing you're going to return. The next morning, the quilt appeared folded outside the den. No note, no apology, just the quilt. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever watched people call you selfish for protecting the one thing that was yours, then you know exactly what that hallway felt like. It was not about a bedroom. It was about years of being treated like the backup plan, the caretaker, the convenient daughter, the one who would always adjust so everyone else could stay comfortable. If this story is hitting close to home, leave a comment and tell me what moment made you stop asking for basic respect. And if you have not already, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. The quiet part is over. The public payoff happened on March 26th at 11 in the morning in Mr. Price's conference room above Briar Glen Savings Bank. It was not a courtroom. There was no judge, no gavel, no dramatic wooden witness stand. Just a rectangular table, 6 chairs, a speakerphone, a pitcher of water, and the kind of fluorescent light that made lies look tired. I arrived 10 minutes early wearing black trousers, a cream sweater, and the brass key on its green ribbon tucked inside my purse. My incision still pulled when I sat, so I moved carefully. Mr. Price noticed and asked if I needed the chair with arms. Yes, I said, thank you. My parents arrived at 11:03. My mother wore her church coat, which meant she expected sympathy. My father wore his dealership polo, which meant he wanted everyone to know he had come from work and therefore had authority. Harper came with them in heeled boots and a beige jacket, carrying a folder I knew would contain nothing useful. Tyler joined by speakerphone. Mr. Price began by stating everyone's names for the record. He asked permission to take notes. My father snorted. Is this really necessary? Mr. Price looked at him. Yes? The room settled. My mother folded a tissue in her lap. Megan, she said softly, before this becomes uglier, we want you to know we forgive you for how you reacted. I looked at her. That was the moment I almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because there are people who will walk into a room built by your evidence and still try to decorate it with their version first. Mr. Price opened a blue folder. Mrs. Foster, this meeting is not about forgiveness. It is about property rights and occupancy. My father leaned back. We lived in that house for 12 years. Yes, Mr. Price said. My mother wanted us there. During her lifetime, yes. And Megan lived there too. Yes. So she doesn't get to suddenly pretend she's the landlord. Mr. Price removed a certified document and placed it in the center of the table. She is not pretending. My father did not touch it. Harper looked from face to face. Mr. Price continued. This is the recorded life estate deed executed by Evelyn Marie Foster and recorded with Bryan County on June 2nd, 2 years before her passing. It names Megan Claire Foster as the remainder beneficiary and current owner following Mrs. Evelyn Foster's death. My mother whispered, no. The word was small. My father said, that was not explained to us. Mr. Price looked at him over his glasses. I explained it to Evelyn Foster in detail. She was competent. She was clear. She instructed me not to involve you because, in her words, you believed presence was the same as entitlement. The room went silent for 7 seconds. I counted. Harper shifted in her chair. Tyler's voice came through the speakerphone. Dad? My father's face reddened. My mother was manipulated. I watched Mr. Price's hands, calm, dry, precise. He opened another folder. I anticipated that concern. Here is the letter from Dr. Samuel Mead, dated May 29th, confirming Evelyn Foster had full cognitive capacity at the time of execution. Here is the notary log. Here are the 2 witness affidavits. And here is a handwritten note from Evelyn to be opened if the deed was ever challenged by family. My mother looked at me sharply. You knew about this? Yes. Why didn't you tell us? I answered quietly. Grandma asked me to keep the papers safe, not to use them as decoration. Mr. Price unfolded the handwritten note. I recognized Grandma's handwriting immediately. Strong slant. Blue ink. No wasted loops. He read it aloud. To Richard, Linda, Tyler, and anyone else who may believe they were wronged by this decision, I leave the house to Megan, because Megan stayed when staying was work. She learned the bills, the repairs, the medicines, the appointments, and the quiet costs nobody claps for. Richard is my son, and I love him, but love is not a deed. Linda has lived under this roof, but living here did not make it hers. Tyler has his life elsewhere. Megan has given this house her time, her care, and her youth. I want her to have a home no one can take from her. My mother began to cry, not loudly, just enough to ask the room to turn toward her. No one did. Mr. Price continued reading. If anyone tries to make Megan feel guilty, remind them that guilt is not a legal instrument. For the first time in days, my body forgot to hurt. Harper's face had changed. The smugness had left, replaced by the pale calculation of someone realizing she had moved into the wrong woman's room. My father pushed the document back. This is ridiculous. She can't just throw family out. Mr. Price nodded. Correct. There is a lawful process. That is why we are here. He placed 3 papers on the table. Option 1. Richard and Linda Foster sign an occupancy agreement, acknowledging Megan Foster as owner, agreeing not to move additional persons into the property without written consent, and returning Megan's bedroom and possessions immediately. My mother's crying stopped. Option 2, Mr. Price continued. Megan serves formal notice to terminate permission to occupy, after which eviction proceedings may begin according to Pennsylvania law. My father's hand tightened around the arm of his chair. And Harper? He asked. Mr. Price looked at Harper. Harper Bell has no permission from the property owner to reside at 118 Hawthorne Street. She is to remove her belongings by 6 o'clock tomorrow evening unless Megan chooses otherwise. Harper turned to my mother. Aunt Linda? My mother looked at my father. My father looked at the table. That was the quietest answer Harper had ever received. She stood. This is insane. You all told me I could stay. My father said, sit down. No, Harper said, voice rising. You told me this was your house. You told me Megan was being dramatic and needed to grow up. Mr. Price made a note. My father noticed. Don't write that down. Mr. Price did not look up. You said this was not necessary. Tyler's voice came through the phone again. Mom, did you put Megan's stuff in trash bags while she was in the hospital? My mother pressed the tissue to her nose. She wasn't using the room. I turned my head toward the speakerphone. Tyler, I had emergency surgery. He did not answer right away. Then he said, Mom. Just one word, but it carried the first crack in the family story. My father pointed at me. You wanted this. You wanted to humiliate us. I reached into my purse and took out the brass key with the green ribbon. I placed it on the table beside Grandma's note. No, I said. I wanted to sleep in my own bed after surgery. The room went still. That sentence did what anger could not have done. It made the cruelty simple. Mr. Price slid the occupancy agreement toward my parents. You can review this with independent counsel, he said. But the immediate matter is not negotiable. Megan's belongings are to be returned to her room today. Harper's belongings are to be removed. No locks are to be changed. No property is to be discarded. No medical condition is to be used to question Megan's ownership. If any of those things occur, we proceed formally. My mother looked at me, her eyes wet and hard. Your grandmother would be ashamed. I picked up the brass key. No, I said. She wrote it down because she knew you would say that. For once, my mother had no reply. The aftermath was not clean. People love stories where the truth lands, and everyone suddenly understands their role. Real life is not that generous. Harper moved out the next day at 5:38 in the evening. She carried her suitcase down the stairs, while I sat in the living room with a cup of tea and watched without offering help. Her face was tight. My mother hovered near the doorway, aching to comfort her, but afraid to look too disloyal in my house. Harper stopped near the front door. You could have just said no, she muttered. I looked at the trash bags my father had finally brought down from the hallway. I did. She left. My father returned my boxes to my room with the resentful efficiency of a man moving evidence. My books went back on the shelves out of order. My certificate was rehung slightly crooked. My grandmother's quilt was placed at the foot of the bed, folded wrong. I fixed everything slowly over 3 days because my body still hurt, and because reclaiming a room is sometimes quieter than losing it. My mother tried apology first, but only the kind that folded blame back into my lap. I'm sorry you felt pushed out, she said on March 29th while standing in the hallway. I was replacing the bird-shaped key hook beside my door. I did not feel pushed out. You pushed me out. Her mouth tightened. You know what I meant. I know exactly what you meant. Then she tried grief. I lost my mother too, Megan. I turned the screwdriver once more. Yes, and she left me the house. My mother stared at me. You sound cold. I hung the brass key on the hook. I sound clear. My father refused to sign the occupancy agreement for 9 days. During those 9 days, he left cabinets open, muttered under his breath, and told relatives I had lawyered up against my own parents. Aunt Rochelle called me selfish. A cousin in Ohio sent me a long message about respecting elders. Tyler unexpectedly did not join them. He called me on April 2nd at 8:10 in the evening. I looked up the property records, he said. I know. Grandma really did it. Yes. He was quiet. Why didn't she leave me anything? I sat on my bed, the quilt over my lap. She left you the old watch from Grandpa. Mom has it in the dining room cabinet. I mean the house. I looked toward the window. The maple tree had tiny green buds. Because you have a house, Tyler. He sighed. I guess that sounds obvious when you say it. It was obvious to her. Another pause. I'm sorry they did that while you were in the hospital. My throat tightened unexpectedly. Thank you. I should have called more when Grandma was sick. Yes, I said. He took that without defending himself. That was new. My parents signed the occupancy agreement on April 6th. Mr. Price required notarized signatures. My father complained about the fee. My mother wore sunglasses indoors. But they signed. The agreement did not heal us, it clarified us. They could remain in the house for 12 months while they found another place, provided they contributed a fixed amount toward utilities, did not move anyone else in, did not interfere with my bedroom, documents, mail, medical care, or ownership, and treated the property with reasonable care. If they violated the terms, I could begin the removal process. My father said, "This is humiliating." Mr. Price replied, "It is an agreement." After that, the house changed. Not visibly at first. The hydrangeas still needed pruning. The kitchen cabinets were still yellow. The second stair still creaked. But the error no longer belonged to my parents by assumption. I bought a lock for my bedroom door, not because I wanted to live like a stranger, but because privacy is not cruelty. I moved Grandma's blue folder into a small fireproof safe. I called the property insurance company and made sure my contact information was primary. I opened a separate account for taxes and repairs. I hired a plumber for the upstairs bathroom leak my father had ignored for months, while calling himself the man of the house. When the plumber handed me the invoice, he said, "Owner signature here." For a second, I just looked at the word, owner. Then I signed my name. My recovery took longer than I expected. Pain makes you humble in ways pride never manages. Some mornings, I could only make it halfway down the stairs before needing to sit. Danielle from work brought soup. Claire from my night shift covered 2 of my weekend rotations. Mr. Price called once just to check that the house was peaceful. My parents did not ask how I felt, but they began knocking before entering rooms. That may sound small. It was not. In June, I painted my bedroom. I chose a soft sage green, because Grandma once said green made a room feel like it forgave you. I washed the curtains. I replaced the broken lamp. I unpacked every bag they had filled, even the ones that smelled faintly like basement dust and lemon cleaner. At the bottom of one box, I found the white jewelry dish. The pearl earring was still missing. I kept the dish anyway. Some things survive without being complete. By September, my parents had found a townhouse near my mother's sister. They moved out on a warm Saturday, while Tyler came from Charlotte to help. My father carried boxes without looking at me. My mother cried in the kitchen and touched the yellow cabinets like she was leaving a house she had built with her hands. I wanted to say, "You lived here because Grandma was generous." I wanted to say, "You mistook shelter for ownership." I said neither. At the door, my mother turned. "Will you be happy now?" I looked past her into the house, the staircase, the key hook, the hallway leading to my room, the kitchen where Grandma taught me to make tea properly, the den where I had slept after surgery because they thought a sofa was enough for me. "I'll be peaceful," I said. "That's different." She left. That evening, after the moving truck pulled away, I walked through every room, not triumphantly, carefully. I opened windows. I swept the upstairs hallway. I folded Grandma's quilt at the foot of my bed. Then I took the brass key off its green ribbon and polished it with a soft cloth until it caught the lamplight. The house was quiet in a way it had not been for years. No recliner snapping back, no television shouting from the living room, no mother calling my name like a task. Just the old walls settling around me. I made tea in Grandma's favorite mug, the one she said never made tea taste metallic, and sat at the kitchen table. The yellow cabinets glowed softly under the evening light. Outside, the maple tree moved in the wind. For a long time, I thought being the daughter who stayed meant accepting whatever place people left for me. The den. The sofa, the corner of the table. The room after everyone else chose theirs. But staying is not the same as surrendering. Caretaking is not consent. Love is not a deed. That was the lesson Grandma left me. Not just in paper. In pattern. She watched who showed up when there was nothing glamorous to gain. She watched who remembered appointments, who learned the medicine names, who cleaned after accidents, who sat through the silent hours when illness made conversation too heavy. She saw the work nobody posted about. Then she wrote down the truth before anyone could edit it. People later asked whether I felt guilty for making my parents leave. The honest answer is that guilt visited. It knocked. It came in wearing my mother's voice. It sat beside me when I paid the first repair bill alone. It whispered that good daughters sacrifice, that family deserves endless chances, that a bedroom is a small thing. But then I remembered standing in that hallway with stitches in my body while my cousin slept under my grandmother's quilt. A room is not small when it is the last place you are allowed to belong. A key is not small when someone has tried to make you feel like a guest. A deed is not small when it carries the voice of a woman who knew you would need proof. So no, I did not destroy my family. I stopped letting my family destroy the truth. I still live in the house on Hawthorne Street. The shutters are no longer blue. I painted them deep green last spring. The cracked brick walkway has been repaired. The hydrangeas came back stronger after I pruned them harder than I wanted to. Funny how that happens. Tyler visits sometimes with his children. He strips the guest bed now before leaving. My mother sends cards on holidays, polite and careful. My father has not apologized. Harper blocked me online, then unblocked me, then blocked me again, which seems to be her emotional process. I do not chase any of them. On the anniversary of Grandma's death, I sit in the kitchen with her recipe tin and make her cinnamon tea cake. I place the brass key on the table beside the blue folder, not because I expect another fight, but because I like seeing them together. One opens the door. The other proves why I have the right to walk through it. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I know there are women listening who have been called selfish for wanting rest, dramatic for wanting respect, or ungrateful for protecting the one thing someone tried to leave them. I hope Megan's story reminds you that the truth does not need to be loud to be firm. Sometimes power is a certified copy, a calm lawyer, a key on a ribbon, and the moment you finally stop sleeping on the sofa of your own life. Subscribe to Ultimate Revenge for more stories about quiet women, family betrayal, silent comebacks, and proof that speaks when people refuse to listen. So tell me, if your own family packed your life into trash bags while you were fighting to heal, would you keep trying to explain your worth? Or would you bring out the deed and let the record speak?